So my pilot that does most of my flying up here, he was picking up a hiker that had done this really long range trek up here in the Arctic. And this guy was laying in his tent one night and he could tell there was a bear outside the tent. And I do not know the circumstances, but this bear bit this guy's hand through the tent. That's all he did. Bit him, shook him hard, let go of him. Everybody lived happily thereafter, but he had some serious puncture wounds in his hand and on his tent. Freak things like that. Like, how do you explain that away?
Yeah, I'd have probably shot the bear through the tent.
I don't know that he had a gun, actually. There was another incident where the same pilot had dropped somebody off and they were on the north coast, and these polar bears started getting more and more aggressive with him, and he couldn't get away from them, couldn't hide from them. Had a heavy revolver, and he said one day he's packing up the tent and he's got both tent doors open because he's watching bears through both doors, and they're getting just closer and bolder and bolder. And the pilot advised him, if I were you, I would kill one of those bears, gut it right there, try to get the other bear to eat it, or to occupy its attention with the bear that you've just killed. And you need to get out of there. I mean, you take all the precautions you can, you take all the preventative measures you can, but there comes a point where you've done all you can and now you need to kill this thing. You're at that point right now. So of course it was a big deal since it was a polar bear. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service had to get involved and everything else.
So he did kill it.
He did kill one, yeah.
What did they end up doing?
I don't actually know the details on that. I mean, it's a defensive life and property situation where usually they'll investigate it, and if they can show, generally speaking, if you can show that you haven't done anything negligent and you've taken all the precautions you can, it's probably going to be found to be justifiable. You still have to, you're supposed to still take care of the hide and surrender it to Fish and Game. In his situation, I don't think he did, because I think the whole point was to leave a bear carcass here to occupy the other bears so that you can make an exit.
Wow, they were getting pretty bold with him.
Yeah, right, exactly. And he was in the wide open, on the north coast. But that sounds like that would be a pretty scary situation, really.
So at the end of the day, everybody needs to pay attention. Don't drop your guard, And
yeah, all the time. And it is easy to become lackadaisical. I mean, we're out here, we're not in areas that are super high game density rich areas. I mean, there's a lot of game here, but that's because we're in a huge amount of country.
Right.
The amount of game per square mile is actually fairly low. So you get to the point where you're like, oh, we haven't seen bears, and you start to become careless, and that's when things go wrong. So, I mean, keeping a rifle handy, as we talked about it, you don't need to chamber around. But I do assume every gun laying around here is loaded and has a full magazine and an empty chamber. And then just staying very alert. Not 99 out of 100 times or more, as soon as a bear smells you, he's gone.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's the young bears that really haven't learned how the world works yet.
And these bears up in this country, they're hungry too because they work for a living. These bears don't have it easy.
Right. They don't have a lot of protein in their diet. No, you're right. But you get that 1 in a million or 1 in whatever thousand that's just got a terrible attitude.
He's in the mood.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've had him walk, I've been, making sandwiches and had him walk right into camp. And I think they're as startled as you are, but, whether it was you weren't making enough noise or, did they smell food? Who knows? But at that point, I would try to, scare them away, make noise, make yourself big. If you have to shoot around, you're going to try to hit a couple feet in front of their feet to sting them a little bit. You're not going to do major damage.
Blowing rocks up on them or whatever.
Right. But at the moment you really think this thing is going to bite me, and I don't mean he's 100 yards away and got his face up, but I mean, if he's 25 yards closer, and if he drops his head down low, lays his ears down flat, all the aggressive behavior with any animal like that, or if he starts popping his jaws. And when I say popping his jaws, if it ever happens, you'll go, that's what he was talking about.
I've heard it.
At that point,
That big bear we killed on that bait, when he knew we were there with
Yeah.
that sow in there, he walked around our tree doing it.
is that right?
Just,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
just
certainly
wouldn't- he
aggressive behavior that I would not take.
oh, he was
lightly.
looking right at us doing it. He'd snarl and just get madder, but she wouldn't leave, and so he wouldn't leave.
Gotcha.
I mean, he knew we were there. He was about 8 foot from him, 10 foot from him, eye level, because the tree stand was up in the tree, and he was on the hill behind the stand, looking right in Steven. Steven was like, that's really close. Like if he wanted to like run and jump, he might could touch you. Like
Oh, man.
Oh yeah. And I'm sitting there with a bow. I got this.
I had one encounter with a bear. I mean, like I say, I've been very fortunate. None of them have ended badly or where somebody got hurt. But I had a hunter wound a bear. It was myself and another guide, Jeff Brand, who you just met. And we drew straws to see who was going to stay downwind and be ready when he ran out of brush, and who was going to go into the brush to try to drive him out. Now, I drew the short straw, went into the brush, and he wouldn't come out. He could smell me, but he would not come out. So, with a big alder patch. And so Jeff and I basically leapfrogged our way in. One guy would blood trail while the other guy was ready. And we would keep doing this. And we got to this point where we're going up a little gravel wash, and the rocks are wet, and the blood is still dripping on the rocks. And we're thinking, he is right here somewhere, like right in front of us here somewhere. And I was leapfrogging a little bit ahead of Jeff, and I heard the gravel move in this little ditch right beside me, and I knew that was him. It was real windy, it was hard to hear, but I knew that was him. So I chambered around and head down and bull rushed in there. And the look on this bear's face is one that, I mean, that's funny to say or to hear, but the look on this bear's face will stay with me. He did the snarl and look at the side of his face as he looked up at me, and I just kept shooting. But that one was just a few feet away, and he was wounded, but he was still very lively.